Councilmember Leo Zuber,
Here.
Mike Ristusha,
Present.
Vice Mayor Dean Euchre,
Here.
Mayor Daniel DeGraff.
I am here. Yeah, sorry, the special meetings always throw me off on the agenda because they're not organized as normal. At this time, we will open it up for public discussion for items that are not on the agenda. I have a hard time believing there's anybody here that has something that's not on the agenda. Lisa, was there anything that was submitted that is not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. With that, we will go into the topic for tonight. Before we do, just want to give a little bit of background on the process, what we're looking at going forward. So as you all know, on November 10th, 2021, Councilman Tim Wheeler submitted his resignation. With that, the government code allows for the city council to either appoint someone or call for a special election. And as is sort of the history is suggested, we went with the same process we used last time and decided to go through the appointment process. So whoever's appointed to this position will serve until the next general election. So it would be from the next meeting, December 14th, up until the next election, at which point they would be able to either run for a re-election for the remaining 2 terms or decide not to run. And someone else could fill that seat. So let's see, the criteria, as you all know, they must be 18 years of age, reside in the city limits, and be registered to vote in Ripon. Initially, we had received 9 applications, but 1 individual had rescinded their application, so there is only 8. And the names in the order that they were received by the city clerk that are going to be involved in this process for this evening: Gary Barton, Richard Cole, Deborah Van Essen, George Salgian, Stephen Verver, Michael Ferraro, Tamara Spade, and F. Philip Kruger. Those are the 8 names and the 8 individuals that will be going through the process this evening. And I think you're all here, so that's good. So there's no specific statute in the government code that dictates how we go through this process, but in the past we've gone through and did an interview process with the applicants, so we are going to do that really relatively the same process as was used before. We'll interview each individual candidate with a predetermined set of questions for each one. And following that process, there will be a vote basically by the council that will either narrow it down, or if there is 3 people, if there's at least 3 people in the first round that vote for the same candidate, then that candidate will be the one that will be recommended at the December 14th board meeting, council meeting. So it's not going to be a fun process, but we're going to ask that all the candidates wait in the conference room, and we'll call you out one by one. That'll ensure fairness, so everybody, the first time that they hear the questions will be while they're in here being interviewed. And then well, we'll probably after, there's 8 candidates, so probably after the 4th, take a short intermission, take a 10-minute break or so people can use the restroom, grab a snack or something like that. So we'll maybe play that a little bit by ear. I don't know if we have a set time we want to do that, but try and move things along as rapidly as they can, but give everybody a fair shot at this, and then be cognizant of people's need to use the restroom or take a break. So we'll do that. So after the first round of interviews, as I said before, council will submit a ballot, and it'll be a secret ballot. And if one of the applicants receives 3 votes, then that will stop the process. If one applicant receives 3 ballots, council members will turn in their overall rankings, which we have a sheet that we rank each candidate on, and then that will be used to narrow down to the top 2 or 3, depending on how the votes come out, I think is how it will end up being. At that point, council will go through another ballot round of us voting on those, and if at that point we get to a 3 or 4 vote for one candidate, then that candidate would be the candidate that gets moved to the next general meeting. I think that pretty much covers the process. I don't know, Kevin, if you have anything you want to add at this point.
The one thing I would add, I think the goal of tonight is obviously to get the city council the information they need to make a decision and to potentially rank the applicants. So with that, tonight I will serve as somewhat of a moderator. I will be asking questions, and then Lisa will be doing the ballot and the tallies of the rankings if we get to that point. So that'll kind of be staff's role through this process. While all the applicants are here, I'll just kind of describe a little bit of the interview process so you guys all hear it at one time. I don't have to do it individually. The council decided that the overall interview would be 20 minutes. That would include a 3-minute opening. We have 8 questions, and then there would be a 1-minute closing provided to the applicants. Like I said, the goal is to get through this with each of the applicants. So, and in a reasonable amount of time. We didn't want to delay tonight because tonight could turn into a very long time. But there's also an understanding that some of the questions may not just take 2 minutes, right? 8 questions at 2 minutes is what gets you to 20 minutes. So we'll have 2 minutes up on the screen, and you'll see kind of where you're at, and you can kind of gauge that. But you know, what's important is making sure the council and you're able to convey the information you would like to convey. So if there's a time a question goes over 2 minutes, you have the ability to do that. Understanding there may be a question down the line that may be less than 2 minutes. So we'll be aware of that. We are going to hold the time to the 3-minute opening and the 1-minute closing. Those will be held to those times. So you'll have a timer up on the screen, so you'll be able to see that. But after that, we're going to have a little leeway. I'll try to help if something's going a little longer and you're running out of time and we're not going to be able to get to the questions. I'll try to help wrap it up if in a meaningful way with that specific question. But that's really the goal tonight, is to get everyone through the 8 questions we have, along with the opening and closing statements.
Thank you, Kevin. I will ask if there's any public comment on the process beforehand. If you guys have anything you'd like to add or any questions, be happy to address those beforehand. If not, we will kind of move into the process.
Seeing none, I think the next step, Lisa's going to do a drawing for the order of the interviews.
I don't want to choose. And this is for the order that the candidates will go in.
This is going to be the first interview. Will be Stephen Verber. Deborah Vanessen. Gary Barton. The 4th will be Richard Cole. Tamara Spade. George Salgin. Michael Ferrera. And Philip Kruger.
Okay, so that's the order we will take you all in. I believe Jane will be in the conference room with the candidates, and then we'll call you out by one to go through that process. And there's only a couple here that aren't the candidates, so I'll take a brief minute to, I guess we'll release you all, take a brief minute to address the public, and then call out the first candidate.
When they're, say, number 1, when they're done, can they leave?
They can either sit in the audience or leave.
Just so they know, they don't want to sit around for 2-3 hours.
Yes, when you're finished, I mean, up until you are called, you will need to be in the room. After that, you're free to go whatever you would like to do, or you can stay and wait till the end. So, I guess with that, we'll release you all to the conference room, and we'll get started in just a brief moment. We'll call out the first one. Looking forward to this.
At least someone is.
Good leaving, but just give them the
Hey, they're free to do whatever they want. I wouldn't leave, but.
Well, yeah, probably should have, Suit and tie.
I just want to make, I just want to make a brief statement. I know that the three of you will be more than professional and polite, but if we can, as the candidates are answering their questions, just remain quiet. Don't make faces at them, and don't make it any more difficult on them. Yes.
You can make it at us.
Yeah, you can make any faces you want at us, but yeah, just and as anybody else comes in, I'll reiterate that to them as well. But is there any further questions or anything we need to go, or we'll bring in the first candidate? And
Before we get to that, let me just, Lisa, do you have the rankings, updated rankings?
I have a sample ranking sheet for them, and Jane will be bringing out, with the second interviewee, she will be bringing out the name in the order that we just chose.
Okay.
So what they have in front of them is just a sample that you can walk them through.
This one, you just put the first number here, then the first two numbers there, and the first three there.
It should be.
Yeah, then you can change it over.
Yeah. And she'll bring it out with the second applicant?
Correct.
Yeah, so the way that we've done these in the past, obviously when the first one goes, they're number one. After the second candidate goes, you re-rank them 1 and 2, and so
At
on.
the bottom,
What's that?
you put the first
We'll get one
here.
that's in
Here
the
you
correct
do
order,
after the
though?
second. Here
She's
you do
printing
after
that,
the
or
third.
we'll
No, it starts up here.
So Steve's number
In,
one.
in your sample, I believe Gary would be interview number 1.
Question whether you want the.
Yeah, in the
Correct.
sample,
high score
But
or the low
Steve is
score.
the actual.
so he's,
So she's gonna reprint
Right.
one that's in the correct order for us.
you would go like this. So you,
That's what,
But that's what you
it's
do if you
arranged
start at the
this way
bottom.
for. Here's your number one. Now, how do you rank number one and number two? 1, 2. How do you rank number three and there's 3, 1, 2.
so we,
So that by the time you get there, you have all 7 of them.
we have it set up the other way, right? In this sample, Gary Barton was the first interview.
Correct.
Right, but he's not. No,
But
it's
do it,
Steve.
do it.
No, but in the sample
They're gonna
here.
print us
Can you-
another
can
one
you
that's
do it?
correct.
So he would have 8 numbers next to his.
Steve?
No.
No, you start at the bottom.
Because you need a tally, you need a 1 through 9 tally at the end.
I'm just gonna do it.
So Steve starts at the top with 8 boxes.
Yes, he starts at the top with 8 boxes. Because at the end of the night, what we need for Lisa to tally this up is the last column, 1 through 8.
I mean, technically, you can not rank them the entire time and just rank them at the end and rank them 1 through 9, or 1 through 8 if you wanted to, too. But this just
Right.
kind of keeps them in order, so you're not trying to think back, who was,
What this is designed to do is to force you to rank them as you go along,
Exactly.
rather than wait till the end.
right.
Right. But at the end, we need 1 through 8 on here.
But if you run it all the way through, it wouldn't take about a second.
We
to go
can,
all
this
the way.
is scratch paper, right? So we can
Yes,
use it any
correct.
way
Yeah.
we want.
But
you're gonna
if I
use
could
it for
just run,
Steve, though.
if I could just run through maybe a few iterations of this, with the first person up on top, in this case,
Yeah,
is
forget the
Gary.
name at this point.
Yeah, obviously with the first one, he's 1. When the second person from the top goes, in this case, it's Richard Cole, you would re-rank those first 2. So you would rank Gary 1, let's say Richard Cole 2. When you go to the next one, you would re-rank just those 3. So I'm just keeping them in order, Gary Barton would be 1, Richard Cole would be 2, Deborah 3, or however you choose to rank them. You would continue that until you get to the last person. When you get to the last person, you'll have 1 through 8 in the last column. Lisa is going to take those tallies, the 1 through 8 for each of you, and add those up to get to the 2 lowest scores.
And if
Wasn't
you
it
do it the
counting
opposite
when
way,
you-
then you're
Just give me a golf
playing
club and a
highest
ball,
score,
and
don't
pitch is over with.
Isn't that
You're
right?
going low score.
Exactly.
Well, it's essentially what it is.
That'd be a high score for me.
Why not make it simpler and just do coin flip until you get done? Probably be an easier process. Well, they're all
That'd be a
qualified.
process.
All qualified.
The mafia doesn't even do that.
Well, with the second one, the first ones.
The first one, the first person, they're gonna be a 1.
Yeah.
The second one,
The first one's gonna get 1 rating, right?
right, it just helps you keep them in order as you go along. so you can say, okay, yeah, this is where I felt like it was.
So I guess technically the first one will get a 1.
The first round.
I mean, it seems like that would happen.
Well, it has to happen, yeah. You only get, however many people you're in is how many ranks you get.
Unless they really flub up.
You put them automatically at 8 as the first one?
Say that.
So is Jane going, she's gonna print us out these, or Lisa?
bring them in with the second applicant.
With the second applicant. Okay, well, are we ready for the first applicant then? I'm ready. Let's get this show on the road. Y'all ready for this?
Huh?
I said, y'all ready for this?
Yep.
Where's all our trees? I thought we were getting trees.
In the back. Nothing out here.
Those are treats. Not yet. You gotta wait a little bit. You gotta do some work to earn it.
So, Verver, sorry, number 1, yeah?
And Jane will bring the ranking sheets right now.
Perfect.
Oh, good.
Are they
We're
gonna
gonna have them come up there, yeah?
Yeah, go, yes.
To the,
Thank you.
sorry, you didn't get one.
Toss a sample.
Figured out already.
Is that your ranking right there?
I'm gonna use my,
Use this one and just rank it 1 through 8 and see where it goes.
and then change it up. Oh, I got it. Yeah, number 1 over
Ready?
here.
Okay,
Yep.
we're ready. Yep.
Okay, good evening.
Evening.
So we'll begin with your opening statement. Again, it is 3 minutes, and the clock there will be on, and then when you hit within 30 seconds, the yellow, or within 1 minute? Within 1 minute, you'll get the yellow light that will go on.
Okay.
Begin when you're ready.
Good evening. First, I'd like to say thank you to the council and the city members that have taken their time to be here tonight and put this on for us. My name is Stephen Verver. I was born and raised in this town. I love this town. I had the unique opportunity of growing up here, attending school here, grade school, high school. When people ask me, I'm able to tell them I probably had one of the greatest childhoods ever. Why is that? Because I had great parents that raised me in a great town. When I graduated from high school, I made the choice to serve. I joined the United States Navy. And after 5 years of service, I got out and realized the only place for me to go was to move back to Ripon and pursue college. During my time in college, I also had that same realization that as an adult, I always felt it was my duty to serve. So my service with the military continued in the Navy Reserve, retiring this year in May after 22 years of service, and deploying for Operation Enduring Freedom. Upon completing college, I got hired on at Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. I've been there for 16 years. Currently serve as a sergeant. I've overseen multiple programs there, one of which my lieutenant and I started from the ground up and actually leads the state in restoring inmates to proceed with their court hearings. But enough about me on that aspect. Why I'm really here is because I believe in this town. I'm pro-public safety. I know a lot of the officers. I realize that Ripon Fire District is not a part of the city. However, they serve the citizens of this city. Majority of their calls are within the city limits. They do fantastic work. Ripon Police Department does fantastic work. I'm an avid supporter of all aspects of public safety. I'm a huge believer in education too. I look at Ripon Unified School District and the fantastic job they do educating our youth. My son happens to be in 8th grade out at Colony Oak right now, and I can't say enough good stuff about what happens there. I can't wait for him to be in Ripon High, because I know how well the teachers and administrators take care of the kids. But I'm also, I realize I'm over time, but when it comes to the city, infrastructure is a big issue, along with growth, and those are always challenges that are faced, especially for you gentlemen sitting here now.
Great, thank you very much. Your first question, and again, we're gonna set the time on these for 2 minutes, and it's just kind of a guide for you to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. First question is, as a council member, there are times you're not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
If I was a councilman and I cast my vote and it was a losing vote, that's how it works. There is no reaction. You win some, you lose some. I may look at something that, hey, this is how I'm gonna vote on this, but these other gentlemen voted against that. Maybe in the end, that's the greater good. So that's just something that comes along with the territory. I don't get emotional over things like that. It's a constant part of life.
Great. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do to improve economic development in Ripon?
Well, with regard to that, I would probably only look at one thing, which is getting more of that outside money in to the city, as opposed to some of these, like, I don't know, I'll use a restaurant as an example. It doesn't necessarily bring outside money in. If you take a look at, say, Boat Country over here by Jack Tone, those are businesses that get a lot of outside money into the town, which I think would be a little more advantageous to the city. But as far as business goes with incentives, I'm not opposed to any of it. I would just take caution with the things that are approved to come into town and make sure we're all on board with the fact that you bring certain things in, you got to be prepared for other things on the back end of that and adjust to that as well, whether it be, you know, your water, sewage, police, fire, you know, make sure that we can adequately deal with that.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development in Ripon?
Maybe I don't know everything about what you gentlemen do or the ins and outs of city politics. I've had a little hand in county politics working at the sheriff's department. But when it comes to something like that, I would say we have all the discretion in the world. It's our town. If we want it here, great. If we don't, let's take a look at and see what we would need to do to change the idea of those individuals or dissuade them from coming here. As far as that goes, opposed or for it, I take no real stance on that.
Thank you. Next question. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
Downtown Main Street gets quite narrow. I see issues with big vehicles getting in there or through there, specifically fire trucks, because if you have some people that park in a rush and their car or pickup is hanging out the back of the parking space, it might be hard for some vehicles like that to navigate around. It would be, I don't think there's any way to get around the fact if that was to be changed, it would be a costly change. But in my opinion, it would be going away from the angled parking and widening the road and going back to parallel parking in front of the businesses.
Okay, next question. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
I definitely think that it's something we should look at if they're unable to raise their funds for whatever it may be that they're trying to do. Like I said in my opening, they service the citizens of our town. They take care of us. Why can't we look at, okay, well, if they can't get this measure through, let's see what we can do as a community to help them out, however that may look, I don't know.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Well, one solution off the top of my head, but it makes it uncomfortable for everybody, is start throwing up some of those speed bumps down the road to slow people down. Obviously that probably wouldn't be a good idea for Main Street, but I happen to live over there, over in the old Dutch Hollow on Duma Way. So I've seen a lot of that coming out of West Ripon. They'll cut over through 4th Street. Maybe changing the cycle of the lights, but I've also seen Ripon PD sitting right there at the corner and being extremely proactive, and that is definitely, in my opinion, acted as a deterrent for a lot of these people driving through there, because it has lessened.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And cite an example if you have one.
Something I actually hope you wouldn't ask me, because I'm not on social media. I'm not vehemently opposed to it. I'm just not on it because of my current career. Has led a lot of people to problems. As far as the city government being on social media, is that the basis of your question? City government using social media?
No, not necessarily the city of Ripon, but just in general, the social media's role in local
I mean,
government.
I think it's big, regardless of what your take on social media is. It's big. It plays a role in our lives, and it's a way actually to get information out to people a lot quicker than it has been in the past. I'm not opposed to it. You just got to know. The individual would just have to understand, if you're going to use social media, there's a potential for a lot of backlash. But yes, I have no problem with social media being used as far as that goes.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
Well, I did a little bit of research on my own as far as when it comes to economic development, but I also took the time to go talk to individuals like Chief Ormonde, Lieutenant Sauer. I spoke with Mr. Vince Hobbs of the Unified School District Board. I spoke with Chief Bitters of the Ripon Fire District. And like I said, with the full understanding, I know that the city doesn't necessarily have a stake in the game with 2 of those. However, they're in our town, and they matter. And I heard nothing but great things about the interaction with these individuals and boards, along with the city, and how well people work together. Of course, I would kind of caveat that with the fact that, you know, something may be good, but we can always make it better.
Great. So that's the last question that we had. Next would be your closing statement, and again, this would be for 1 minute, and I believe the yellow light is gonna turn on in 30 seconds. Oh, no yellow light. No, 1 minute.
Okay, so once again, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for your time, to the councilmen, the city workers. I would just like for you all to know that if I am the gentleman that you decided to go with, I realize I'm standing in the front of the line of a lot of qualified individuals. I don't know what they can offer, but I do know what I can offer. I've spent my entire adult life serving. I'm dedicated. I would be dedicated 24/7. If I was selected to a position like this, whether it's now or in a future election, the minute that that happens, I consider it 24/7. Dedication, hard work, and loyalty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ready?
Suppose so.
Kevin, you want those 30-second markers? I can change that.
No, I just couldn't remember how we,
Well, actually, I put my notes in the first one.
I know you,
Bring in 30.
what's that?
Yeah,
You know what, Jane will be coming out.
yeah, when Jane comes out, you can go back with her a minute.
We keep your phone.
Yeah. That's an application fee. We gotta see if there's any dirt we can get off you first.
Yeah, we said you could leave. We didn't say you could leave with your phone.
Yeah.
They didn't take your wallet too?
You better check.
I still have that.
So far.
And it's not Stockton, so your car's still out there. That's off the record.
He says after he says it.
Yeah.
Is that okay, the questions?
Maybe stop and take a little pit stop in the bathroom on the way. That far.
I was gonna bring a little Swiss bell and ring it.
Oh, God.
Pavlov's dog.
I texted her next.
Did you tell her to bring the phone up?
No, I just figured she'll walk, even that.
Oh.
I know you guys did a lot of work putting this whole thing together, or package. I tore it all apart, so I can take notes easy.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I switched binders as well.
I'm back there chit-chatting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as we discussed before, the first item is an opening statement. Again, it is 3 minutes. A yellow light will go on after, when you have 1 minute left. And we would just ask you to stay within the 3 minutes.
Okay. That should be no problem for me. So, Honorable City Council and staff, I want to thank you for the opportunity to apply for this vacant City Council position. I'm a lifelong resident of Ripon, and I've served on the Planning Commission for 12 years. My children were raised in Ripon, and I now have 9 grandchildren growing up in Ripon. So I have a passion for this city that we call Ripon, and my passion is to preserve and promote this city and keep it the special city it is. I would describe myself as being fiscally and socially conservative. That means I value and respect all physical resources, our finances, our land, our water, our air, and our buildings. I also value and respect our human resources, the staff, the employees, the citizens, and the people who volunteer in Ripon. I would say I'm analytical by nature, and I have an ability to problem solve. I'm not easily intimidated. Some of you probably know that already. And I'm also not easily insulted, so I don't worry about either one of those things. You will find that I have a even-keel personality, and I have a good sense of humor, I think. If given a task or a commitment, I will work in a consistent manner to fulfill the required expectations. I've been blessed with good health and energy that allows me to work hard and to be consistent. I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I'm not afraid to look for answers. I think I bring a real unique blend of my past history, having lived here for 65 years and been in this community that long, but then I'm also open-minded about change. So I'm not afraid of change, and I'm not afraid of looking at all the options. In conclusion, I would say that I am well fitted for the position of City Council member, and I'm now honored to answer your questions.
Thank you. The first question, as a council member, there are times you are not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
I think I would have to say that goes back to my description of myself as even keel and looking at all the possibilities. I would hope that I would come in having researched what's happening and make a recommendation based on my research. And if the rest of the council members don't agree with me, then that's okay. We do have to do what is best for the city. And I would not get upset or vengeful or critical of my fellow city council members. I would just respect them and move forward. We've had instances of that on the Planning Commission where I have not been exactly on the same page as everybody else. And so I state my opinion, I vote the way I think is right, and then whatever happens is what happens. So you can see my past experiences that that's how I am.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
From what I can tell, the city has done a pretty good job. I also have served on the Economic Development Committee, so I meet with them, well, it was once a month for a while, and now it's just every other month. So I'm pretty much aware of what's going on, and I think I see the city actively working to bring in businesses that make sense for the city, that meld well with the city. So I think they've done a good job. I am not familiar with all the things that the City Council has done, nor am I familiar with all the possible things that could be done. I would hope that we would look more at what's going on downtown and solve some of the issues downtown. I like the fact that as a city council, you've made it a priority to not allow our town to be a drive-through, where you've slowed the traffic down and not encourage people to use it as a shortcut when they don't want to go down 99. So I think that's important for our city, and I think that's one of the things that we've done well to help economic growth, to be able to let businesses grow, because people aren't just running through town on a quick basis. So that, I think they've done well. Is there probably more they could do, we could do? Probably. But I'd have to research it and know what's going on.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
Well, okay, so I voted for that Burger King when I was on the planning commission, so obviously I felt it was a good fit. And there's also Popeye's Chicken, so there's two things. One of the things that was said by the owner, because there was some concern by one of the planning commissioners about traffic and how it might potentially be the same as Chick-fil-A. And the owner of this business said, and I have to believe him, he said, between these two businesses, we won't have anywhere near the amount of traffic that Chick-fil-A has. So he basically said this is not going to be a problem. I think it's good that there be some more eateries in that area. We've got, the climbing wall is there, and then now we're going to have the recreational vehicle sales there. And there's a lot of people who live in that area. So giving them the ability to walk over and get something to eat and spend some time in their community, I think is a good match. And I felt looking at the findings, which is what we do, we look at the findings, we look at how how the city has developed their ordinance of what goes where. And if we can agree with the findings and vote for it, that's what we do as a planning commission. So I have to say I supported it because we made all the findings. I felt it was important, so.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
I know that this is a very volatile question. I would say that, yes, there is a bit of a downtown parking problem. However, there is plenty of parking. Is it always right in front of the place you want to go? No. I also know that if you go to any city, you're going to see that you're going to need to walk if you want to go to certain businesses. There's not going, you go to San Francisco, you go to Manteca, which is where my business is, parking's an issue there. You go to any downtown area and there's always a parking issue. So part of it is getting people to think in terms of, if I really want to be here and I want to go to these facilities and I want to spend some time downtown, getting used to the idea of doing a little bit of walking, and that's educating and that's spending time with the citizens. And so to say, I also will say that I would not deny a new business coming into town because there aren't enough parking spaces. I think that's a good way to kill downtown, is to say there's not enough parking spaces, so therefore you can't come. And that will send businesses running. They won't want to come in. So I do not agree with the concept that we have to turn down a business because of the parking issue. I think we can look at it and make it work.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
Well, based on what you just said, it is a separate entity. So I don't know that the city has the ability to overrule any of that. That's something I'd have to research and find out if the city can overrule it. But I think based on the fact that it is a separate entity and they are responsible for their finances and for their organization, I think we let them do that. I'm a firm believer in government performing the tasks that they're called to perform and be involved in the way they should be involved, but I'm absolutely against government overreach. So when we start overreaching what our task is and what our job is, I cannot support that. So I would have to research it further and know exactly what, as a city, we're able to do in that. I would like to encourage the fire department to probably do a better job communicating to the citizens on what's needed, and encourage the vote to go their way.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through Ripon to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
I think we've already done some things that we can do by timing the light on Jacktown Road so that it actually becomes more of an inconvenience for people to go through Ripon than to go around them. I think having the metering lights on the entrance to the freeway is going to help that. I would probably not be in favor of toll roads. I don't know that that would really help. I think and then by not making our main street wider, that's also gonna slow people down and maybe not wanna have them gonna wanna go through town. Having a business in Manteca, I've seen the failures that they've done with their traffic and how ridiculous it is, and they can never get it figured out. But they've tried to make the thoroughfare roads wider so that more and more people come through there and make it even more and more difficult. And I don't think we want that in Ripon. I think we want downtown to be a destination and not a drive-through. So I think some of the things we've already done, and then just continue to reinforce that and improve the traffic control, and work with Caltrans to make sure the traffic on 99 is moving faster and going, which I don't know if that'll work, but I think that's important to keep people on the freeway.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
Ooh. I don't really have one. I have to say, I know there's like a Ripon page where people can talk about things, and I do not subscribe to that. I spend very little time on Facebook or other social media. I would prefer to interact with our citizens one-on-one and have a conversation with them if they have a concern. Obviously, there's always going to be people on social media who are going to say things that they probably shouldn't say and make accusations that they probably shouldn't make. And I think that goes back to the fact of I'm not intimidated by that, and I'm not insulted. It takes a lot to insult me. And I feel like I'm intelligent enough that I can answer anything that might be there. So I don't know that we want to encourage any of that or encourage the fighting that goes on in some of these social pages. Maybe I'm just old, but I don't. I just don't encourage that. I think it's a bad way to go. We all, if I get appointed to the city council, I have enough time where I can spend time with people and talk to them one-on-one and hopefully make a difference. I'm at a point in my life where I have plenty of margin, and so I can be out there talking to people.
Thank you. And this is the last question before the closing statement. How did you prepare for this interview?
Oh, well, I did write a little opening statement and a little conclusion, and obviously my opening statement wasn't 3 minutes, and my conclusion is not 1 minute. I am succinct, and I don't need to ramble on. I don't need to hear myself. And so maybe I speak too short for your satisfaction. I don't know. That's who I am. I actually looked up what the roles of a city council person is. So I thought, well, maybe you'll ask me what city council people do. So I did look that up, and I have that in front of me. Some of it I wasn't sure if you guys actually do some of this stuff, like exercise the power of eminent domain. That sounds a little scary. But other than that, like review and improving the annual budget, establish long and short-term objectives and priorities, oversee performance of public employees, communicate policies to the citizens. I think all of those things are important, and so I did do that. And then I also, in preparation, just kind of reflected on who I am and what's important to me. and why I want to do this. For a number of years, when I was on the Planning Commission, people would say, why don't you run for city council? And my answer was always, nope, I will never do that. And this time, it seemed right. I felt like this is what I'm called to do, so that's how I prepare.
Thank you. And then lastly, is your closing statement.
Okay, so in conclusion, I understand that this is not an easy task as you look at who is best fitted for the vacant position. I realize you are not only looking at qualifications and abilities, but also considering the right person to fit in with your current leadership styles. I trust I've been able to let you see who I am, and my aptitude for this position. I personally feel that I would make a good city council member and would faithfully represent our citizens. I pledge to thoughtfully consider and research any and all issues presented to the city council. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we're going to begin with the opening statement. I swear by the end of this, I'm going to get it right. The light will go on the yellow light will go on when you have 1 minute left. And then the red light will go on when your 3 minutes is up.
Very good.
Please begin when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor DeGraff, members of the council. My name is Gary Barton. I've been a resident of Ripon for 28 years and have lived in this part of the valley for most of my life. I applied for the council opening because I love Ripon, and I want to continue to do the work that has made this such a special town. I'm part of the 4th generation of our family business. One learns at an early age, and especially as one becomes an owner and manager of a business, that we are simply stewards of the pioneering work and sacrifice and dedication that have come before us. My brothers and I share those values and hope to leave the business better than we found it and create the opportunities for future generations. I share this because I believe it closely reflects the work of those in leadership positions at the City of Ripon. Members of the City Council, the Planning Commission, and other local bodies are dedicated to the idea that we wish to honor those who have come before us, that built this wonderful town, and by applying our own unique skills and talents, make this city better and one that future generations will appreciate and cherish. That is my hope, to be chosen to sit with you on this council. Ripon is an exceptional city in an exceptional country. We have what I believe is an ideal governmental construct, a small government working for a local population. Rippon's government focuses on those things that are most important to its citizens. Number one, protect the lives and property of the community. Our superb police and fire departments work diligently to maintain a peaceful, productive environment for our citizens. This is the first order of business of any government. Number two, deliver the services that are expected. Clean water, toilets that flush, garbage that's picked up in a timely way. All as well, people want safe, clean streets and a vibrant business community. And number three, support families. In Ripon, we are blessed with outstanding schools, both public and private. We have excellent leadership at both. Our schools reflect the values of this town. As well, we are blessed with numerous outstanding churches that promote and enhance the spiritual welfare of our citizens. I'm grateful to be one of such an outstanding group of applicants for the open council seat, and I'm grateful that each of you has chosen to dedicate a fair portion of your time in serving this city. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question tonight is, as a council member, there are times you are not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
Well, so the first thought that comes to mind is I've had this experience at the Planning Commission level. You may be aware of the project that JKB proposed to put at the corner of North Ripon and River Road. And after listening to the planning director's presentation and a good discussion amongst the council with clearly a number of questions about that project, I was in the, shall we say, humbling position of offering a motion to pass that project, and the motion died for lack of a second. So I'm familiar with what it means to be on the other side of a question. Frankly, I find that to be a healthy part of a governing body. That, and particularly when you're with people of goodwill, as I certainly know people on this council are and people on the Planning Commission, people, again, who share a common interest in this town and what we love about it and the things that we want to see it become. And so, yeah, I enjoy a spirited conversation, and if I'm on the losing side of a particular question, that's fine. I certainly humbly appreciate that the other side may well have voted in a better way than I did, and on we go.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
So Ripon is, it's a unique town, and it's not a place where everyone can come and start a business. It has a reputation, I think rightfully so, as a difficult town to get through the planning process, not just because of the fees, but because of some of the other things that are asked of particular developers. By and large, I think that's fine. We don't want to be the next town that if you can generate some sales tax, welcome aboard, we want to have you. We want something that continues to make, in my opinion, continues to make Ripon a special place. And we see towns in close proximity to us that have done things a different way. I have no interest in replicating that. I have primarily an interest in doing those things that, as I've said on the Planning Commission, I want to be able to look back in 25 years, assuming I'm still alive, which may be a stretch, but that I feel good about, that we all feel good about, that we feel, you know what, we got that one right. And so I think what Ripon has done in terms of business development is appropriate, and I would generally support that.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
So I was, at the Planning Commission level, not a big fan of the Burger King and Popeyes. I was a fan of the car wash, by the way. I know a lot of people who are very interested in seeing that project completed. The fast food component, no, I'm not thrilled with that. At the same time, I am not a fan of the idea that, and I'll just, sort of the general sentiment is, well, we've got enough of that. And typically it's, well, we've got enough Mexican restaurants in town. We don't need another one. And I've had conversations with people in town. It's like, you know what? Let's let the market decide that. They'll figure that out. And if we didn't need another Mexican restaurant, well, nobody's going to go there, and they're not going to be around for long. My big issue with the Burger King particularly was I did not like the access, the ingress and egress to that project. Jack Tone, there are pretty high travel speeds on that road, and there was a narrow point of access and exit there, and I was concerned for safety reasons about that. I also thought it was very tight in terms of turning within that project. And so that was, I think, my stated objection at the Planning Commission. I don't recall exactly, but I think I may have voted against that part of the project. Or actually, I think I offered an amended motion, and ultimately that passed. I think that's what happened.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
Yes, there is a downtown parking problem. It's a bit intractable. There's only so much space that can go to parking. We have, I think, a healthier menu of businesses now, which probably exacerbate that issue. And then, of course, something you folks have been working on for the last year and a half plus are these, and just as a philosophical aside, these incredibly onerous and burdensome state mandates shutting down businesses. The result of that was, of course, that council chose to make available dining for certain businesses on the sidewalk, or in some cases in parking slots. I thought that was completely understandable. I also thought it needed to be temporary because clearly it does put a burden on other businesses who don't have or need an outdoor feature, because it removes parking spaces near their businesses. In terms of a solution, I'm not sure I'm wise enough to figure that one out. I know I've had discussions that if at some point, and by the way, I recognize this is expensive, but if at some point there is a plot of land that comes available in that area where a parking structure could be built, I think that would be extremely helpful. Ultimately, we want people to avail themselves of the businesses in downtown. They do that now. They're generally willing to walk, but at times, as I think all of us know, we go to a facility there and you can drive around for a while before you find a spot. So It's a challenge. We just need to continue to do the best we can with it.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund the operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
Well, I think the city has taken the appropriate role, which is to, although they don't have a direct hand in the funding of the fire district, it's a separate entity. The city has chosen, I think wisely, to partner with them to try to find a means to put a Prop 218 measure on the ballot. And I think, personally, I think the fire department, in some regards, was their own worst enemy with the last couple of times that they put essentially a tax in front of the voters. I just don't think I don't think their public relations on that was very effective, and of course they ran into a buzzsaw at Bethany. But I think in this case, you know, now it's twice shy. I think in this case, partnering with the city, generating, for their sake, a lot of goodwill with existing businesses and citizens, I suspect their chances are much better. No, I'm not excited about paying more taxes, but the need is clearly there. They've got to get staff to Station 3. The city has grown, and of course the ambulance service is really an important part of this community now. We've got to be able to fund those guys because their reimbursements from almost everyone except maybe Kaiser and Blue Cross is totally insufficient to keep them going.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Mounted twin 50 calibers, I'd say. All right, sorry, probably shouldn't have said. It's a challenging issue, and we've got a long wait until the mess that is the Highway 120-99 interchange is completed, which I think will alleviate most of it. I believe what's council, staff, and the police department have done have clearly had a very significant and positive impact. When I compare, so I live over on the other side of the freeway, use the Main Street Bridge frequently. When I compare traffic there at 3:30, 4:30 in the afternoon now compared to a couple of years ago, we're in a much better place now. So the traffic light at Jack Tone and West Ripon clearly has helped. Writing tickets. Look, I get it's not fun, but that was a serious annoyance to those of us who live in town and have to deal with a whole bunch of folks who are attempting to take the shortcuts. So I would continue to support those kinds of means, and if there are other great ideas, I've spoken with one of you about that, and I thought there was a very good idea there. I would support those ideas to limit that as appropriate and as we can do legally.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
Ooh. Social media is, I mean, I use it. Probably most or all of us do. It can get pretty toxic though, and it gets there in a hurry. and there is a sense of anonymity, and people feel protected behind their phone or keyboard, and things can be said that are not healthy, I'll just say, for the community. I think overall, it can be a wonderful way to communicate to a broad audience about activities, about decisions that are made by the city. And I guess I would encourage all of us, regardless of our positions, to avoid engaging when somebody is really wanting to stir up a hornet's nest. There aren't any winners in those situations. As far as a specific incident, you know, I'm not sure I can cite one specific to city activities. The first one that comes to mind is the very, in my opinion, unfortunate thing that happened with with Skemper's Ace Hardware. And I won't go into detail, but that was, I just felt so badly for people who had done so much for our community, and they were put in an incredibly difficult position. And I thought they ultimately handled it with grace and honor. But that was a tough thing to kind of witness from the outside.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
Well, obviously the first thing I did was I talked to my wife. Had to get clearance there, and then I spoke with members of the council. I spoke with some members of staff. I spent a fair amount of time reading minutes. Man, you guys have had a lot of special meetings over the last year and a half. And that was enlightening, and regardless of whether I'm chosen, that was just very interesting to see, in some ways, the process, sort of how the sausage is made at times. And I really appreciate the homework that you guys do and really apply yourselves to try to come to the best decisions. And then I prayed.
Thank you. The last item is the closing statement. Again, this is 1 minute. The red light will turn on after 1 minute, and at that point in time, we would just ask that you wrap up your closing statement.
You bet. I've appreciated the opportunity to listen to these questions and to exchange ideas about our wonderful town. I look forward to working with all of you to continue to make Ripon special. We know that at times we'll not get it right, but we hope that most of the time we do. Let us move forward together humbly, relying on the abundance given us by our Creator, and work to make this town even better than we found it. Blessings to all of you. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm going to start off just tongue-in-cheek saying, I find it very ironic in November, the first question I was asked was, are we sure you're not going to move from the community and leave this as a vacant seat? So I wish Mr. Wheeler luck, but that irony is not lost on me. I thought it was pretty funny. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And
If I could just real quick.
Yes.
The first item is the opening statement and the
Yeah.
way the lights will work.
Yeah.
You have a 3-minute opening statement. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on.
Okay.
And at 3 minutes, the red light will come on, and we just ask you wrap up your opening
Okay.
statement at
Yeah.
that point.
I'll let you know when I'm finished. I don't think it's going to take 3 minutes, so it'll be pretty quick. Good to go?
Please
All
go
right.
ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm very grateful for this unique opportunity because it's unlike the last experience in November. My name is Richard Cole. I live here in Ripon. My employment is I'm the CFO of a manufacturing company in Houston, California. I would like to basically say what I can contribute to the council. I have an extensive history in finance, operations, municipalities, and when I say municipalities, I'm a vendor for municipalities. I've dealt with them on that end, which is, to me, an asset to being in public office due to the fact that I know how negotiations work with vendors because I've been on the other end of the stick. I have extensive experience in human resources. I have extensive experience with finance and budgets. I'm responsible for, at this point, I run a $9 million a year company. I deal with an annual budget of close to $5 to $4 million. And those budgeting skills, I think, would be a strong asset to being on the council. I'm a very good consensus builder. I never make rash decisions. If I'm dealing with a situation, I listen to all viewpoints. I think that's what makes me a very good leader. And if I am given the opportunity, I think I'd be a very valuable asset to the council. That's all the time I'm going to need. Yeah. Most of you know me from the last time in November. I mean, people can look back and see what I stood for and what the things I said. So,
Thank you. As a council member, there are times you are not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
it's the will of the council. I mean, if you're outvoted, and I've been outvoted in my current position at my company, I react. I move forward with it. I mean, I'm going to try to sway. If we're having a group discussion and trying to come to a consensus in regards to what we can do, I'm going to work as hard as I can to try to get my viewpoint across, but I'm also very open to other viewpoints. So when I do take defeat, and I don't think there's anyone in here that has never taken defeat, I take it very graciously. I'll maybe voice my dissatisfaction, and maybe we should consider this next time, but I'm very even-keeled and even-mannered. I'm not a person that is an angry person at all. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
I think the city's done a great job, especially if they're budgeting. But if I can interject here, my most significant worry about our city is our budget. This bubble that we're experiencing right now with this economic boom, speaking from a manufacturing level, is not going to last. This is going to be another 2008, in my opinion. We are going to have problems. We need to be very frugal in how we're spending our money, how we're investing our money, because there is another economic downturn coming. Unless something drastic happens, in my opinion, it's going to happen. So I think the city has done a very good job in synthesizing business and things of that nature. So I don't really think that there's anything that needs to be improved upon.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
That's a rough one. If it's zoned for something and it's applicable to be in the location, they have a right to build there. We should have public forum. I mean, that's what the planning commission is for. They look at these things before it comes to you. But the city should have discretion if we're talking about something that we don't want in our town. Some of the dispensaries that are going up in our neighboring cities and things of that nature, but I think the city should hold public forum. You should get the consensus of the people we work for, which is the taxpayer and the voters, and make your decisions based on those influences.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
There definitely is a downtown parking problem right now, and when the ACE train comes into effect, it might get worse. I would propose that you're gonna have to think of lots. You're gonna have to look at property around the downtown area to have larger lots. Over by, I don't know what is going across on the recycling, I believe that is where the ACE train is gonna be going, but you're gonna have to put a lot more parking down there, especially as it becomes more congested with that ACE train. I don't know if there's any other way. Then during COVID, we took up a lot of parking as we started putting all these outdoor venues, and that ate up some of the parking. But in regards to how and what you can put in, you're gonna have to look at the land that's down there. You've got that corner lot right down near where you head up to the freeway. At one time was being developed by Mr. Wheeler and his partners, and I think it's still being developed. That might be ample, some more parking that you can put in, but you're gonna have to find space. Where's your space down there? Where are you gonna put it? You're gonna have to do some real analysis on what you do. You might have to have double-decker parking. You might have to put a parking garage somewhere, but then that's gonna be an eyesore to the community. So you're gonna have to look at every possible opportunity in regards to what you can do.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund the operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of the fire district operations?
They're your partner in the city. I mean, I had the opportunity to speak to the fire chief back in November, and they are our partner. Again, you're going to have a problem. Our city is getting larger and larger. They need to fund that other station. Granted, I understand that they're responsible for the tax revenue that is going to fund that station, but we, as a council and community, need to help them figure out how to do it. Nobody likes the word taxes. Nobody likes the word taxes. But the fact is that nothing is free. Our law enforcement isn't free. Our fire departments aren't free. First thing that they would need to do is look at how they can better spend their money, make sure they can't get any extra funds through cutting expenditures and things of that nature. But if you have to tax for public safety, education, and things of that nature, that's the way it is. There's no way around it. So the city council has an obligation to work with them to find a solution. It's not for you to find the solution for them, but I think you should work hand in hand, giving them suggestions and working on the process.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Well, hopefully when the interchange comes into effect, and we've all seen it on Highway 99 coming across Kansas, that's going to eliminate hopefully some of the traffic coming into our city. But I think that we're gonna have to work with law enforcement and the chief and his people to ticket more. I mean, if you're known for ticketing people, because you've seen them, I've driven down there, these people are running red lights, they're speeding down Main Street, not just a little bit, they're speeding a lot. That we need our police out there ticketing. And then it's going to send a message to those people, don't cut through the city. I would also say that there's really no way we're gonna stop that. And I mean, they're gonna have to work on the highway. I mean, there's so many different things that are out of our control. But I believe that what is in our control is to have our law enforcement out there enforcing violations and making sure that they're ticketing anyone that's in excess speed, running red lights, coasting through a yellow at the end. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
Holy mackerel, yeah. I did not have social media until November. I had cut it off until I ran in November for the council position. And man, it's toxic. I got messages from people that I didn't even know, questioning how long I've lived in this community. I believe that the city council, let me preface this, I believe that the city council is a nonpartisan role. You represent everyone in this community, everyone, no matter who they are. But the number one question, which I will say, I am a Republican, I was asked my political affiliation over and over. I can't see how that's applicable to what you do. And man, I got some visceral. I thought it was toxic. It was eye-opening for me. It introduced me to this whole process. I went through it. But I think social media is very valuable from your standpoint to communicate. Maybe not to interact with your constituents, but it's very important in regards to communicating events, communicating upcoming road closures, things of that. I don't think it should be used from your level to talk about decisions, politics, and things of that nature. Just becomes, because my personal experience with it from the fall was it was very toxic, visceral, and it made me it made me feel uncomfortable. It made me question some of the people in my community, because I view this community as such. They're wholesome. This is the best place I've ever lived, and I couldn't believe some of the things that were being sent to me in messages and things of that nature. And I'm sure that maybe that's happened to some of you, but it was something that I wasn't used to. So. Yeah. But I think that it is very important for you from a communication standpoint with your constituents.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How did you prepare for this interview?
How did I prepare for this interview? I went back and watched your city council meetings. I read about some of the development projects. I actually watched some of the planning commission meetings, and I did a lot of praying. So I didn't make the decision to come here and interview after I had lost the election lightly. I prayed a lot because God in our house is number one, and my wife and my family. So I did a lot of prayer and did a lot of research on you guys. So.
Thank you. Lastly is a closing statement. Again, this is 1 minute. The red light will go on at 1 minute, and we would just ask you wrap up your closing statement at that time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I'll close out by saying I'm very thankful for the opportunity just to participate in this, because I've had the opportunity in the back room to meet everybody and talk to them, and I know most of the people. And I think whoever you pick, again, will be a valuable asset to the council. I think that I don't have what some of these people have in regards to they've already had public service. I've never had public service. I've served on committees and boards outside of public service, but I think I have a very strong financial background. I have a very strong organizational background. I'm a very even keel person that's pretty much kind to everybody. You never see me get cross. I always pride myself on that. So I think it'd be a very valuable asset to the council. I'm insightful. I think about things before they come out of my mouth, and I think that I can contribute a lot, but that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
This is how your chart on look right now. I'm not sure that Dean sees it the same way I see it. I hate to have this jumble of numbers at the end. But
I looked over.
you looked over and we're good?
So what I could see,
Okay.
but the Dean I can't see.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hello.
So we're going to begin with an opening statement. As we mentioned earlier, it's going to be a 3-minute opening statement. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on, and then at 3 minutes, the red light will come on, and we just ask that you wrap up your opening statement at that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Tamara Spade. My family and I have been part of Ripon community for the last 9 years. My daughter attended Ripon Elementary School and Ripon High School and graduated from there. I ran for council in 2020 because I love this community and what it stands for. It is important to me to be involved and to give back to the community I live in and be part of the team that helps preserve the Ripon that we know and love. I wanted to help us move forward on important issues like safety, infrastructure, business, and education, just to name a few. It is true, Ripon is the jewel of the valley, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. In addition to living here, I've had the pleasure of serving as the CEO at the Ripon Chamber. I developed the Economic Development and Government Relations Committee. I started the Chamber nonprofit and the Ripon Youth Leadership Academy. I also brought the idea of the Ripon Christmas Light Parade and was able to bring it to fruition with the partnership of the Ripon Fire and Police Department. My professional background brings skills and knowledge in customer service, contract negotiations, accounting, business, and economic development. My personal relevance, I hold a degree in communications, a master's in business administration, and I've completed 72 units towards my doctorate in organizational leadership. I also hold a certification in nonprofit organization management, a certification in California economic development, and I'm 2 classes away from my international certification in economic development. Many of my experiences have prepared me to serve on the council. They have shaped my understanding of effective government, budgets, business, and what it takes to maintain a strong and vibrant community. I have volunteered in many capacities while serving on various boards of directors, such as the Ripon Community Fire Board, Doctors Hospital Manteca, Second Harvest Food Bank, Spring Creek Golf and Country Club. I'm currently serving my 3rd term on the San Joaquin County Workforce Development Board for District 4, which I was appointed by the County Supervisor Board, also the Ripon Community Fund, and the Valley First Credit Union Supervisory Committee for Audits. I have spent 9 years in the Chamber of Commerce industry helping attract jobs and building local economies. I was also a part-time faculty member at Notre Dame de Namur University, teaching business management. I have 3 years in state government. Oh, that was my time. and 20 years working in sales with Fortune 500 and larger accounts and contract negotiations. In addition, I run my own business and nonprofit foundation. I appreciate the process being held today, and I hope you find professional and educational background an asset for the open seat, council seat. I appreciate your consideration and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. The first question, as a council member, there are times you're not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
Well, I think first, you have to do what's best for the city, and you can't always be in agreement with everybody, and so I think you just have to educate yourself on whatever the background of the problem is or the issue, and do what you believe is the best thing to do.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
Well, I'm not aware of the incentive programs that are being offered, but I think if they are, and you're doing, if you're offering things that are gonna bring in businesses and help development, then I think that's all you can do, if, you know, so. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
No, I think then they've done enough. If they've gotten incentive programs and they're offering and partnering with the developers, and I think that would be enough.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
Well, I think that the city should have full discretion on what comes in, but I also think that the constituents and the people that live here should also have discretion. And you know, bringing in a business, it brings in sales tax, it brings in jobs and other benefits, and so I think that if it's been approved, because obviously there's a process that they have to go to, and it's been approved, then the city's discretion, that's what people should.
Thank you.
I don't know, yeah. I just think it should be the city's discretion in the process that they go through, so.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
Yes, there is a downtown parking problem, but you know, I think a lot of cities have parking problems, and if there's an area to where a vacant lot or something like that, that the city could purchase and put in a parking lot. I know that in the past there has been opportunities. You could look at redesigning the downtown parking, doing parallel versus, you know, what we currently have to make more parking spots. But I definitely think there's options, and I think that Ripon needs additional parking.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
Well, I think the city's doing what they need to do. I think the partnership and doing a special tax and working with the fire department is important, and I think that's what the city's currently doing.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
I know that Ripon has tried doing different things, changing the timing of the lights. I don't know if there's anything that we can do as a community to eliminate the impact. People are gonna come through town if the freeway's backed up. I know they put in the lights entering on the freeway and trying to slow that down or give it more room in between, but it doesn't seem to be working, so. But I think that the city has actually worked on certain things and tried different things, and they just haven't worked.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
I think social media is important with local government. I think the transparency, I think letting people know what's going on, I think has been a positive thing, even with Nickel and the police department. And but I definitely think it's important, and it's something that has to be done.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
Well, I went back and I reviewed the minutes from previous meetings. I have been part of meetings. I ran in 2020. I've met with some of the city staff, including yourself, and looked at information and asked about specific areas in the city, and I think that was how I prepared myself.
Thank you. We're at the point now where we're at the closing statement. Again, it's 1 minute. The red light will go on at 1 minute. There's no yellow light at this point. And we just ask that when the red light goes on, you wrap up your closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to reiterate that Ripon is a great community to live in, and I would like to be part of the team that helps preserve the Ripon that we know and love. My family has chosen to live here and raise our daughter because of the wonderful attributes Ripon offers. Safety is one of those most important. I have shown my dedication and desire to volunteer and serve, and I hope that you find my professional and educational background an asset for the open council seat. I would like to thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
happen to be on this side for a change.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're going to begin with the opening statement. Again, it's 3 minutes.
Okay?
When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on, and when your time's up, the red light will start to flash, and we're just asking that you wrap up your opening statement at that point.
Very good. Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council, and members of the public, thank you for this opportunity to give a brief introduction. My name is George Salgin. My wife of 39 years, Annalise, and I have lived in Ripon now for 16 years. It's been a real blessing. We both grew up in the East Bay area, and we moved to Tracy in 1984. And the poorly managed growth that we saw there, as well as overcrowded schools, led us to look for a different place to raise our family, and we were blessed to find Ripon. When we explored the town, we knew right away we'd found our new hometown, so it's been awesome. God and our family and our church, our community have always been the priorities in our lives, and we have spent countless hours in volunteering in children's programs, youth programs. I have a BS in accounting, and it was kind of a natural fit for me to, as a board member at the church we attended for many years, act as the church treasurer. I also served as a treasurer for the local PTA that are at the school our kids attended, and for several years coached Little League baseball, basketball programs, etc. We were pretty busy people. Professionally, I have worked in sales and management in the financial planning, the construction industry, as well as transportation industry, and I have been the business development manager for Flory Construction for the past 10 years. We're members at Calvary Reformed Church here in town, and I serve as a deacon as well as on the Calvary leadership team. In 2015, I learned of an opening here on the Ripon Planning Commission, and I thought it would be that I could be potentially a good asset for that body, and have enjoyed serving on that. I also considered it a good opportunity to give something back to our community, the community that really had blessed us. So for 6 years, I've been on that commission, as well as I'm in my third term as the chairman. I think as a commission, we have served the city very well. We've made sound recommendations. Our decisions have sometimes had popular support, sometimes not. However, I believe that they've always been made using good judgment, and we've balanced the rights of property owners with the needs of our city. I think looking back, I would continue to support all of the decisions that we've made, and I'm confident that we'll look back on them with pride as our city continues to mature. I believe I can bring that same sound judgment to the city council, and I have a great respect for our past councils and the current council. We'll seek to build on the good decisions that you guys have made in the past. We have a lot to be proud of here in Ripon. We have an outstanding record of public safety, great schools, a true sense of community. And maintaining these things is critical in securing our standing as what I consider the most desirable place to live and raise a family. In addition, promoting fiscal responsibility and maneuvering the COVID minefield will be important over this coming term. If appointed, I pledge to make every effort to serve my neighbors and community with integrity. And it's with all this in mind that I ask for your vote for the seat on the vacant seat on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Your first question. As a council member, there are times you're not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
I believe it's important to try to fully understand the issue at hand, and once I've done that, to make a case for what I believe to be the right course of action. I think sometimes you come to a compromise, sometimes you win, and sometimes you're on the losing side of that argument. But I believe it's always important that when a decision is made, that you get on board and you support that decision. That as the face of, as one of the faces of the council, that in the public, I would fall in line with the argument that we came to conclude is the right argument. So you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but it's important that we stand as a unified body as a council.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
I think that the city has done a really good job over the last few years since you've decided to make that move. I'm seeing as a planning commissioner, more businesses coming in now. I think it's having a real impact. I think it's important that we make those negotiations, and knowing that in the long term, we're gonna benefit from the additional revenues that will come. We may sacrifice in the short run, but in the long term, it's gonna be profitable for our city. I think that we have to be very careful when it comes to the residential construction. We wanna maintain the standards that we have. I don't think we need to lower our fees. I think some developers deserve to be able to build here in Ripon and some don't. But from the standpoint of the commercial development, seeing the things that have come before us has been encouraging to me, and I think that in the long run, it's going to serve our city very well. And I do think we're on the right track. I think continuing to do that, expanding and understanding what we can do in some of our additional areas of interest, maybe creating some job opportunities as how we zone those areas, and revenue streams are going to be important as well. But again, I do think you guys have done a great job as a council, because I know most of you have been here that entire time in assessing whether it's going to make sense in each individual situation to extend those type of arrangements and agreements.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much...
I'm sorry, which project?
Burger King.
Thank you.
In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
Well, I've always felt as a planning commissioner, we have a set of recommendations that come to us. You know, we have the findings of the director and the planning department, by the way, which do a fabulous job. Every time we get a report, it's really well documented and well researched. So we get the reports, they come before us, and it's up to us as individual commissioners to decide whether we can agree with those findings. And you'd be hard pressed, I think, to disagree or to disallow something that really does fall in line with the findings of the department. So we have some discretion, but most of the discretionary things have to be established up front. If it meets the criteria, if it meets the findings based on the research of our planning department, you'd really be hard pressed to deny it. So in the case of the Burger King, of Popeyes, et cetera, it met the findings, and I support the decisions that we made. I think we've, over the years, have made some very, very sound decisions, and that's not one I would disagree with.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
That's a great question. It's a tough question. We were faced with an issue here I think it was in our last meeting, where there's a cigar lounge that wants to come in where Events 21 is. And so looking at the parking situation there, currently, we have, according to the studies that have been done, we have enough parking. The issue is that a lot of it, I think, is the other end of Main Street from there. And so I do feel like there are times, and I have heard others come before the council and say, hey, we've got an issue, the outdoor setups for the restaurants that we made those exceptions to help them stay in business has caused some problems. The barber shop across the street, the veterinary office across the street. I've heard some complaints that, hey, maybe it's time to get rid of those. But I think it's something we need to look at. However, I spend a lot of time in the Bay Area, and compared to Bay Area cities, we're in great shape. Our traffic issues are pretty well handled. Our parking is much better than in most places. As far as what improvements we could make, if there's some sort of parking structure that could be done eventually, perhaps we do that. Perhaps we use land around the corner by the recycling center. I think we have some options that we can take a look at, but it's going to take, it's not something I'm comfortable with making a recommendation off the cuff, but there are ideas, and there are some things I think we can pursue.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
Again, a great question. It's a difficult one. I think, what is it, Prop 218, I think, that they tried to pass. Unfortunately, I think their approach last time was not well thought out. The almost penalizing the Bethany Home community, I don't think that set well with a lot of the residents there, the families of the residents there. It's a difficult issue. I mean, we obviously need to have a strong police and a strong fire department, but they do have their own sources of revenue. We are not responsible from our general fund or operating funds to support them. However, I think we're partners. We have to protect our city. I think we have to find ways to work together with the fire department. And maybe this next round with a new proposition, we can help them to organize it in a way that's going to make sense, it's going to be palatable to our community, and we can get it through this time and help them. I'd also want, though, a very strong explanation for why there's continual shortfalls. That would concern me. I would need to review budgets and see, if is it all just not enough supply of cash, or can things be managed a little better than they are managed? But I would want to work hand in hand with them to come up with some additional solutions.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Yeah, it has had an impact. I know there are times when I'm coming back from the Bay Area that I come back onto Main Street there, and sitting at the stoplight for the short durations of people passing through can be frustrating. But as I sit there, I come to realize that there's a method to this madness. I'm sitting here to slow down the traffic that's going to be coming through my town and impacting my town. And so I as somebody who uses those roads and will sometimes come in the back way just because I like to avoid traffic in general, I come to be patient as I sit there thinking this is better for our city overall to slow people down as they come through. I'm not a traffic consultant. I don't have a lot of expertise in that area, to be honest with you. I think we'd need to depend upon an outside consultant to help us with that, maybe come up with some additional solutions. I don't know if there's a way to bypass that or not at this point. So I don't want to speak out of turn, claiming to know something that I don't, but I do realize there's an issue there. And again, I think what we're doing currently to try to slow it down is good, albeit frustrating.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
Sure. I think most of it, in my opinion, is negative. It's really difficult to get good information out there. We have a lot to be proud of as a city, as I said in my opening statement. And we have done many, many good things. When I look back at our budgets and I see the way that they've been properly managed, I see some really good things that you guys have done, like in 2018, setting aside some reserve funds. That's really was amazing to think. Then we hit the COVID time period, and we've got reserves because of some of the wise moves that have been made. So I brag about Ripon a lot. I think from a management standpoint, we've done a good job. We have people that have had long tenures here serving our community, and both here on the council, Mr. Warner, your position, you've been at that a long time. I know Ken has been planning department and has a great tenure there. Chief Ormonde since 2011. There's a lot of good stuff here. but it's very easy to pick things apart. Somebody gets an issue in mind, and it just blows up, you know. As a planning commissioner, we face difficult decisions sometimes. The gas station out there by FINA was one of those. And even before that, the apartments and the strip center there that has turned out to be such a great thing for our community has had some real negative response on some of the social media sites. I've stopped looking at the neighborhood app just because, you know, people get on there and they just start firing off stuff, and it's without proper knowledge. So I think if we can find a way to use it to our benefit, would be good. I just think it's pretty hard to do.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
So my preparation included several conversations. I talked to Ken Zeidevart fairly regularly, and I spoke with Ken about the department and the planning department and some of the things that he thinks are important. I spoke with our city attorney, Mr. Terpstra, about his role and how he performs that. I spoke with Chief Ormonde and got his input on our police department and his thoughts as to what it's like working with councils in the past and our current council, to just kind of figure out how best, if I were appointed to this position, I could serve our city. And so I tried to get input from as many departments as I could, just to find out their thoughts on how things are being managed here. It was really encouraging. I looked at our 21 annual budget and did some reading there. So those were some of the things that I looked at to help me prepare for the interview. And again, one of the things that I can't stress enough is how I'm pleased to find that we're doing a lot of really good things. I just don't think enough people know about it. And if it takes, you know, running or applying for a vacant seat on a city council to better inform, I guess it was really good for me. And maybe if not appointed here, I could just be a spokesman for the city. But we've done a lot of really good things, and my research proved that out.
Thank you. We're at the point now where you'll be able to give a closing statement. Again, this is 1 minute, and after 1 minute, the red light will go on, and we just ask you to wrap up your closing statement at that time.
Great. Well, I do appreciate the opportunity. It has been a pleasure to sit on the Planning Commission for these 6 years. It's been enjoyable to see our city grow and develop. My investigations, as I talked about earlier, have led me to a better understanding of how we operate. And I feel like we are proceeding in a very logical and a good way. I like some of the things that we're doing as a city to keep problems out, pursuing misdemeanor charges and community-based offenses to have repeat offenders just not want to do business anymore in Ripon is a smart thing. We're doing a lot of really good things. I'm proud to be on the commission. I'm proud to live here, and I just feel really blessed to be a part of it. So I thank you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
We're going to begin with an opening statement. Again, this statement is for 3 minutes. You will see a yellow light come on when you have 1 minute left, and after 3 minutes, the red light will come on, and we would just ask that you wrap up your opening statement when the red light starts blinking.
Very well.
Thank you.
Is this the yellow light? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Is it my turn?
yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. My name is Michael Ferraro. I come and stand before you to show my appreciation and my involvement into this community. I am first-generation American. A little bit about myself. I come from a Spanish-Italian family, bilingual in Spanish, compassionate about my American roots here. Have strong traditional values. I work as a nurse at a local hospital. Contributions that I've done there is I have helped with the formation of a union, nursing union, and then I was voted upon my peers to represent them in the discussion board meeting there at the hospital. Some of the issues that I see that our community faces today is our COVID issues and education as well, and our relationships with our local cities. I think as a nurse, knowing the ins and outs of COVID and being a frontliner, I could really contribute to this city and dealing with the small businesses and the concerns they may have, as well as our educational system. To start with, our biggest impact is the COVID and the obstacles that are faced from federal and state mandates. And that's something that I think I could contribute, being a board member and having first line of experience with that. Coming up with solutions for our community and being able to find solutions for local businesses. As well as we have to be supportive of our elderly communities here. And with that said, Bethel Retirement Facility is something that should be addressed as well. Our education, we have to have a developing understanding of education of our schools and make sure that our kids are able to free things for themselves. We can't let our state and federal interfere with our schools. Local surrounding cities, the impact of our community, we do have to build a bridge within them. What affects them also affects us. And it's a matter of time before the trends, the complications that occur in those cities come to here.
Thank you. As a council member, there are times you're not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
Well, an agreement with a vote doesn't imply that that individual and I cannot meet terms and be adults and be civil inside this room or even outside. A vote is a vote, and we're all have the right to our own views and our own opinions. And that's something that makes us us, makes our community us, is you're able to think for yourself, and we don't all have to agree on something.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
Well, with that said, the city can always improve. as time goes by, things change around us, and we have to adapt, but at the same time keep our values, our old values here, and protect those old values. That's what differentiates us between the surrounding cities. And with that said, as far as the growing aspect, we have to understand what is best for our city in revenues, and that has to be presented in a way that is keeping our locals in control of our community, making sure that we are supporting our farmers as well and their water rights, and as well as helping mom and pop shops. And the growth is showing that we are supportive of them and being able to exceed their expectations.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
Well, I think the discretion that the city council has is a substantial amount. They are taxpayers, whoever's bringing in that business, and that is something that we as a community can use. However, just like everything else, in my field, we triage things. We have to weigh out the pros and cons and weigh out the balances. And with that same concept, I would think that that would be addressed with such a development. Just because something's developed or isn't developed right now doesn't mean that they may be developed 3 years from now or 5 years from now be definitely developed. And that's something to take consideration.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
There is a downtown parking problem. And my ideas is finding funds, state and federal ways of trying to find that, whether it be moving something closer to Caltrans and attaching to Caltrans and getting support from them. There's ways around of relocating maybe the parking that may address certain revenues from the state and federal grants. With that said, if something is built, it's very important, I think, that we do keep the ambience that Ripon has, if something's going to be built, to keep it with its old style of looks.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
With our fire district, it is a huge role, and I know that they are, their zoned is quite large, and we have to show that we are supportive of them in any way possible. They fall into a special, I guess, allocation in some ways, and being supportive of what we could do to make things easier for them, I think would be the best thing for Ripon.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Can you repeat the question again, sir?
Sure. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
Well, I think it comes down to actually putting some pressure into Caltrans and widening our highways and making sure that the areas that are trafficked, perhaps a light is not the best source, maybe a roundabout or vice versa, depends on how people move around in that area. But most definitely working with others in our community, with Caltrans and local cities, seeing if we could divert the traffic going into that area. I know there is a lot of traffic coming in from South Manteca, coming into Ripon through Jacktone and the back roads. And that's something that we would have to collaborate with Manteca and see what we could do to prevent so much traffic in that area and find solutions.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
Positive and negatives, yeah, this kind of hindsight 2020. Social media can be good and it could be bad. It depends on who's using it and how it's being used. Obviously, it is a huge impact on our youth, and that is something that should be addressed and should be a concern for all of us, especially individuals that have kids, and what is being taught through that social media. And that comes down to also our fundamentals of what is being taught at your house and our educational system in our schools. The social media does have an impact, and we should be addressing it in a way that is valuable towards our youngsters, and in a way that it would not impact or make our town or our community look bad.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
I spoke to certain individuals locally, and I picked their brains. I did some research about this town. I went above and beyond in thinking what words or what questions would be asked during this session. And I spoke to local people at my hospital as well, and gathered their thoughts. A lot of the most effective resource that I had came here locally, though, within this room, from certain individuals.
Thank you. This will be the time for a closing statement. Again, it is 1 minute. At the end of 1 minute, the red light will go on, and we'll just ask you to wrap up your statement at that point.
I think the highest importance to manage growth is to benefit our community and making sure that we keep our strong values here in this community. This community is my passion. This is what I can offer and bring to the table. I am a visionary. I am committed to this community, and I make this my home. I am here to participate and be involved, as that been proven to my track records of my hospital. I am fully capable of working with multiple different generations, genders, and age, and individuals. If I am not elected in this position, I will be back to fight for this position. I do thank all of you for the time and effort that you have given me, as we do strive to have a common goal, and that is to make Ripon the best that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. We'll begin with the opening statement. As I mentioned earlier, the opening statement will be 3 minutes. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on, and after 3 minutes, the red light will come on and begin blinking, and we're asking that you wrap up your opening statement at that point if you're still speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to show my mettle. And I wanted to say, first and foremost, the reason I want to be a Ripon City Councilman is that Ripon is my home. And for the longest period of my life, I was not born in Ripon. I grew up in Stockton. I went away for a while, I came back. But as I was trying to set roots and trying to figure out where to raise a family, my wife and I went to this beautiful house here in Ripon. We looked at it, we fell in love with it instantly, and Ripon became our home. And since then, I've personally been a member of the Ripon Chamber of Commerce. I've enjoyed everything that Ripon has to offer. My son goes to school here over at Ripon Elementary. The reason I want to be a city councilman is because I want to keep Ripon Ripon. Ripon is a beautiful place. It is an oasis in a sea of chaos. And I think what makes it such a great place is the community that we have built here. And my goal as a city councilman is to maintain that community, which I think is the source of so much of our strength. So thank you very much for your time. I'm now open for questions.
Thank you. As a council member, there are times you're not going to agree with your fellow council members and be on a losing side of a vote. Please describe how you typically react to these type of situations.
Well, first I blame the refs. Oh, kidding. It's not often, or it is often, that I find myself on the losing side of a vote, but I think before I get there, the first thing I would do is try to explain my position. I think as a community, we go and we become stronger through consensus. So what I would first try to do is try to understand why people disagree with me. I think one of the worst things we have going on in our society right now is a reluctance or even an anger at listening to the other side. So the very first thing I would do is listen to them and figure out why they disagree with me. And the second thing is I try to build a consensus position. I think a 5-0 vote is almost always going to be better than a 3-2 vote if it's done through some compromise or some consensus building. But if I fail at that, and that is, I think, the heart of the question, I would make my case. I would make it passionately, but I'd make it respectfully. Because at the end of the day, we all come from different walks of life, viewpoints, positions. And so what matters more to me is I have to be an effective legislator for my community. And if I sit there and yell at the 3 that vote against me or yell at the 4 that vote against me, nobody's going to want to listen to me in the future. That's not an effective way to govern. It's an effective way to get a soundbite, but it's not an effective way to govern. A better way to govern is to understand why you lost, to move on, and to try to build consensus with the people that voted against your position.
Thank you. The city has focused on economic development over the last 5 years, instituting an incentive program for sales tax producing developments, lowering city development fees, partnering with developers for win-win projects. Has the city done enough, or are there specific things you believe the city could do better?
One of the things I love about Ripon is that we are a very business-friendly climate. We open our arms to small business, and I think Ripon does a lot in this regard. Part of what I would want to do on the council is to make sure that whatever you describe a win-win program, I would want to first make sure that it is in fact a win-win situation, right? There are certain things, for example, I know there's a discussion about a gas station that's going to be put near the Tractor Supply that I'm not necessarily a big proponent of. I'd want to understand a little bit more why that is coming into focus and why that is coming into being. I'd also want to talk to small businesses downtown to figure out what they would need. But I think we do a good job at Ripon of embracing small businesses. And I think the city does a lot in that regard. I am a frequent visitor to Primo's and Clean Eats and Fina's, and I think that area is a very well done development. So I think we should keep doing that. We should keep working with those developers, but we should also make sure that each and every project is in fact a win-win project. The principle I'd use in that is determining, yes, this is a good business, but is it a good business for our community? And I think generally we have gotten it right. I think generally we have welcomed businesses that are very, very proactive in helping our community. And that's what I see when I go to the Chamber of Commerce mixers, is I see a lot of businesses getting along and working together. So I'd really want to maintain that cooperative atmosphere, but at the same time, not an unquestioning one. And I want to make sure that what we do is, in fact, a win for us and a win for the developer.
Thank you. Many residents felt like the city should have denied the Burger King project being developed near Tractor Supply. In your view, how much discretion should the city have with commercial development?
As much as the law allows it. The thing about the city, the thing about, I think, the residents' objections to that is what makes Ripon, one of the other things that makes Ripon great is the lack of crime. We do an excellent job at protecting our citizens. And my understanding is that Burger King also came a gas station. And my understanding, or at least things that I've observed, are that that's kind of where crime tends to develop. So I think the city has to take as much discretion as it can take to protect its citizens. Because it gets back to kind of my earlier answer to the previous question. We need to know that we're in fact doing a win-win development. And part of that ultimate goal is keeping Ripon Ripon. It's keeping Ripon that safe community. I don't want Ripon to become another Manteca. I think it would be silly to assume that all commercial development will make Ripon not Ripon. But at the same time, I think we have to be very, very careful about what we do with our land. So if that means that we as a city council would have more discretion to examine those proposals, I think we should take it to the maximum extent that the law allows.
Thank you. Is there a downtown parking problem? And if so, how would you propose to fix it?
I am a little bit more concerned about the parking problem that will happen in a couple of years. So if I remember correctly, in 2023, ACE is going to build a station in Stockton Street or near Stockton Street. And with that is going to be, there's going to be more foot traffic, there's going to be more traffic in general. Right now, I think our parking situation is generally fine. My understanding is that we have about 1,000 parking spots in that downtown area, and right now the traffic is estimated to be around 950, if my memory is correct. The problem, though, comes from the future programs or the future things that are coming, like the ACE station. That's going to potentially create a parking problem, and I think that's something we have to take a look for in the future. I think that's the smarter way to handle it. And so the way I would approach that is to figure out what spots aren't being used, to figure out what parking we can develop there, and to make sure that whatever transit projects the state is imposing on us, we do it in a friendly manner.
Thank you. The Ripon Consolidated Fire District is a separate entity from the city of Ripon with its own tax base and fee structure to fund operations of the fire district. The fire district has failed the last 2 times on a property tax measure to increase operating revenue. What is your opinion of the city's role in the funding of fire district operations?
You know, a couple of, was before the pandemic, there was an SOS meeting over at what I'm calling the Ripon north of 99. There's a consolidated fire station right across from FINA, and I had the privilege of attending that meeting because I wanted to figure out what was going on. And it is very clear to me that that station is sorely underfunded. But you are correct, it's not within our purview. And it does not seem that the public is willing to endorse a special tax, which, if I remember correctly, would have to be voted on and approved by 2/3 of the voting public. So we have to do a couple of things. I think the city council should look at ways to potentially use the surplus that we have to loan or perhaps give some sort of grant to the Consolidated Fire District. We should also use our city council resources to give them or to help them with grant production and grant application so that they can get more funding from state and federal governing agencies. However, at the same time, I think it would be, I don't think it would necessarily be smart to assume that the council itself can continuously fund the Ripon Fire District. We don't have that much money. We don't have that much money in a surplus to fund it, I think, more than beyond a year. So we have to look at other avenues, other ways of working with our populace to figure out how we can get that funding, because that's critical funding for particularly seniors out in what I'm, again, calling North Ripon, out in that area. They need that quick response time, and they need that ability to have a firefighter or an ambulance come in there and say, look, we can save your life. And we don't have the funding to staff that, and it is something that is critical, and that would probably be one of my first priorities if I were on the city council.
Thank you. Ripon has been impacted by a large number of vehicles cutting through the city to avoid the congested state highway system. It is illegal to install toll roads or limit access to anyone on a public roadway. What are your ideas to mitigate this impact on our community?
One of the things that I thought was a fairly intelligent idea was to create longer traffic times on the intersection of Jacktone and Main during traffic hours. While I personally am negatively affected by that, because that's the route I take to go home, I understand the policy rationale behind it. We want to deter people from using Ripon as essentially as a thoroughfare to avoid the congestion that is on 99. I think ultimately the solution probably lies outside of Ripon. The reason why I think there's so much traffic there is that there aren't enough bridges connecting South County to Stanislaus County. The other way you can get across the Stanislaus River is out in the outskirts of Tracy. So I think this would be something that the city council would, in my opinion, should talk about with the Council of Governments and figure out perhaps a county-wide solution to building another bypass so that Ripon is not bombarded with out-of-town traffic. Because not only is it bad on that sort of Jacktone Main area, it's also, well, It's also bad on Main Street coming right off of 99. It gets really bad around that time, the rush hour time. So I think this is something that's going to require a county-wide solution, because I don't think we as a city council, even if we created our own bypass in city limits, it's not going to solve the problem. We've got to divert traffic from Ripon. We've got to work with other governments, the county government, to make that happen.
Thank you. Please comment on the role of social media in local government. Overall, has it been positive or negative? And please cite an example if you have one.
I think it's good that social media brings an accessibility of government to the people that we don't otherwise have. And the sort of the key example for me was when I was watching last year's city council debate. I was able to watch that on social media. But for social media, I would not have been able to see it. I would not have been able to understand what the issues were, and I wouldn't have been able to understand who I should vote for. At the same time, like with most other things, social media can create an atmosphere of distrust. So it's good. I would say it's generally a positive thing because it brings a level of knowledge that and I think a lot of other citizens of Ripon would not have had. Obviously, like with Facebook and stuff like that, I think what we would have to do is we have to manage it responsibly. We can't get rid of free speech, and I would never propose getting rid of free speech. I think that's something that makes America and Ripon great. So the comment section is always going to be the comment section, right? But I think we can use our platform, our social media platform, to guide that conversation in a way that comports to what the facts and the reality is on the ground.
Thank you. How did you prepare for this interview?
The first thing I did was look at the Ripon City Minutes. I also talked to, when I looked at the Ripon City Minutes, the City Council Minutes, I looked for issues that were a little bit more contentious, things that perhaps generated more discussion than would not. I also looked at all the items, the consent agenda and everything, because I wanted to get a sense of what the hot button issues were on the ground. I did have a little bit of a sense of that because I had been talking to some people beforehand who had talked about the biggest issue, at least recently, being what to do with the outside dining platforms. And I did that. I also read a little bit of the Manteca Ripon Bulletin to get an idea of what has been discussed in City Council. And again, I just talk to people. Ultimately, citizens have the pulse of their government, right? That's how it should work. And so people are telling me what the issues are. Those are the issues. So that's how I generally prepared for this.
Thank you. This is the point for the closing statement. Again, this will be a 1-minute closing statement. You will see the red light come on after 1 minute, and we would ask you wrap it up at that point. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, again, thank you for listening to the responses to your questions. I know you have all had a very late night. I imagine everyone in this room probably wants to go home and eat dinner. I want to thank you for listening to everyone here. I'm obviously the last person to speak. I think we have a great set of candidates that can take this job, and I hope you choose me. I think I will bring a perspective, coming as an adopted son of Ripon, that I think can add to the city council. And so thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to advocate for myself and also to advocate for the people of Ripon.
Thank you very much. So we could give the city council a few minutes, but at this point, the far right of all the boxes should be filled out 1 through 8. Do you want to take a break now, or you want to continue on through the rest of the process?
Short break. You want to take a short break for this, or do you want to, we can take a short break. I don't think
While we take a break?
We sure can.
Yeah.
So on May 23rd, yes,
The next step is to actually cast a vote on the ballot before those are collected.
yes, yes. So on May 23rd, the city council talked about the process of selection. So based off that discussion, the first step after the first round of interviews is to collect ballots. So on your ballot you have in front of you, you would fill out just the one name of the applicant of your choice. And Lisa will come by and collect those. And so at this point, just so you know the next steps, if there is one applicant that receives 3 ballots, that ends the process, and that would be the applicant that would go to the December 14th meeting to be appointed by the city council. If there is not one applicant that receives 3 of the ballots, we will then go to the rankings. And at that point, Lisa will tabulate the rankings, and those applicants with the 2 lowest scores would go forward to a second round of interviews.
Ready? We do not have an applicant that has received 3 or more votes. We will proceed on.
You would turn in your rankings.
And then we'll take a break while Lisa tallies these up.
Yes.
calculated from this, and it'll be the top two scores.
Two lowest scores.
Two lowest score getters could potentially be multiple people, but Lisa, enlighten us on who has the two lowest scores.
Correct. There were no ties for the two lowest scores, so I have two individuals. Those individuals are Gary Barton and George Salgin.
So that means we go through one more round of votes.
We have 2 questions for each person. So like we did before, Jane will take you back to the conference room, and if you want to,
Do you want me to pull the name out of the
yeah,
hat again?
pull the name out of a hat again, say who's first, and we'll go from there.
We will first interview Gary, and then George.
So we take another vote? Yeah.
You can.
One applicant
It's
receives
not
3
gonna
ballots,
determine anything.
process complete. If no one gets 3 ballots, we just suspend it. And we'll talk about how to make a decision.
Are they different questions for each person, or are they the same questions?
One person, or there's one question for both people, and then we have individual questions.
I think we're ready to go with questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as George. Yeah, as long as George.
Take his phone, time up.
Cones of silence.
Exactly.
Kevin, how many minutes are we doing on this one?
We didn't have one. I would suggest close to the 2 minutes that we did before, or
30 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll be able to get a response.
Maybe we should leave it up to the speakers.
Put on the gloves, Dean, and
the first question, Mr. Barton, how would you define the role of a city council member should play in effective city government?
I will start with the back half of the question, effective city government. City government, in my opinion, has a limited role, but an incredibly important role. They, as I mentioned in my opening statement, city government is responsible first to protect its citizens, and secondly, to handle those functions for which the city is responsible, and finally, to promote a community in which there is goodwill, people work together, and value the other citizens of their community. A city council person is instrumental in establishing a vision for the city, providing leadership for that vision, and developing consensus for ideas that will promote the city to ensure that its citizens are living in a place where they can grow their family, develop their business and personal life, and enjoy the fruits of liberty that we all do in America.
Thank you. Can you foresee any issue that comes before the council on which you might have a conflict of interest? How would you handle those conflicts?
Well, I think the legal answer to that is yes. There may be some areas in which I would have a conflict because our family owns property adjacent to the city. We have other interests, and I'm involved in other boards that may result in me needing to recuse myself from certain decisions. That's entirely appropriate, and one of the things that I know everyone here takes very seriously. Conflicts of interest are not only bad personally for the city councilman, or council person, but are just a black eye for the city generally. And so we all need to be very aware of that. I know you guys are, and it's something that, yeah, I would just recognize that and recuse myself. In terms of other areas of conflict, I guess I can't think of anything offhand other than the legal one that I mentioned. Certainly nothing personally or in terms of our activities in the city or with other members of the staff or the council.
Thank you. That's it. Second round is much faster than the first.
Yeah, speed round.
The speed round.
Kevin, are we doing like 1, 2?
No, no, you'll,
We'll just return a card.
yeah,
We don't need to worry about it.
no.
Would it be easier just if we all put a 1 or a 2 on and add them up and get the bill lowest?
Good evening, again. How would you define the role a city council member should play in effective city government?
Oh, I think the role is pretty expansive. I think you have a lot of responsibility setting strategic planning for our city, establishing budgets, determining proper levels of staffing. It's a huge responsibility. You know, reading through our most recent budget, looking at staffing levels, the way that they've been managed post-recession back in 2008, you know, we had a lot of people we had to let go, and the slowly but surely adding back some, but being careful about that. The strategic planning that you guys have done, I would absolutely want to see that kind of thing continue, where you've automated some things, water meters as an example, irrigation controllers, that type of thing, where we're making one-time investments that help us in the long run not to have to spend as much money. I think all of those things are really important, and most people don't really have a clue that that kind of stuff is going on behind the scenes. So as I look through budgets and reports, I see that the role is very expansive. But you have a responsibility to hear people out, to listen to their concerns about the way that our city is growing and changing, trying to keep the community standards that we have come to enjoy for so long here in Ripon is going to be really important as we continue to grow and expand our city. But I really feel like you just have a responsibility to take care of what we've built here, what's been here in the past, and make sure that you guide us into a similar and comfortable future for the people of Ripon.
Thank you. Can you foresee any issue that comes before the council on which you might have a conflict of interest? How would you handle those conflicts?
Yes, as my role as a builder. I don't own the company that I work for. I've been there 10 years, but I do business development, which means that I go out and I secure work for our company. And then in certain cases, such as Ripon Christian Preschool, Zion United Reformed Church, I actually manage those projects locally as well. So there were times on the planning commission where work came before us that I had to recuse myself from. And so, you know, if there are going to be things, here's another example. There was a church that wanted to come into what was the old skate building, and the subject of making commercial properties to be able to use them as a church facility, I guess. That came before the Planning Commission. And I had to think about that because that's very much what I do. You know, we do a lot of converting commercial buildings to religious facilities. And so it was at that time I talked to Attorney Terpstra and just felt like it would be good to even recuse myself from that type of a subject matter because it would benefit me to vote yes to allow for more of that kind of construction. So that would be the main thing I would see as any kind of a conflict that could potentially come before the council if I were sitting on it. It would have to do with something that had to do with construction of a project that I was interested in or a project that I'd already had contact with. Would never want that to skew my vote in any way. So having had to do that in the past on the Planning Commission, I would certainly do the same thing sitting on the City Council.
Thank you. That concludes the round of questions. Like we said earlier, this is the speed round.
Okay, thank you guys.
So at this point in the process, we would go back through the ballots. Similar to before, if one applicant receives 3 ballots, that will complete the process for this evening. And that would be the individual that would be included on the resolution on December 14th to succeed Tim Willer for the vacant seat. If no one applicant receives 3 ballots, the thought we had when we came up with this process is we would suspend consideration until December 14th. We would have another special meeting between now and then to discuss how to move forward.
Can you please make sure to have the first and last name written out?
First and last?
First and last, please.
You mean and they get lost?
They both start with the first same letter, so she wants to make sure she
Gary
can read
Southern?
Not really that close.
No, but if you write as bad as someone like me, you might not be able to read it, so.
We do have at least 3 votes for one individual.
Okay, see, we don't even have to call it a special meeting.
And that individual,
Well, this is my last meeting as mayor, so. No, you start the next one. Exactly. Well, I cycle out the next one.
do you want to know who it is?
No, let's wait.
Just keep talking amongst yourself.
Go to dinner.
Go ahead, Lisa.
The clerk's going to announce the name of the recipient of the 3 ballots. At the conclusion of that, we would need a motion to forward that to the City Council for inclusion in the resolution that will be adopted on the 14th.
That individual is Gary Barton.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion.
I'll move to include that in the resolution.
Second.
December 14th.
We got a motion in 2 seconds. Lisa, do we want a roll call vote? All in favor vote?
All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? All right.
Motion passes 4-0.
Motion passes. Thank you all.
Just one comment, that I have a lot of experience with Gary, and our meetings will last probably 15% longer.
Well, someone could have told us that
Maybe
before.
the first one.
Well, I'd like to say that you guys did not make this a very easy decision. And I mean, I think you both could have been very qualified. And actually, there was 4 or 5 other people that I felt that were very, very well qualified. It was nice to see how many really good qualified people that came out and did this. It was very impressive.
I agree, and I'd say we'll look forward to the election next year probably too, because I think there might be a few of them coming back. Anyhow, with that, I think that concludes the meeting, so appreciate it. Congratulations, Gary, and thank you to everybody who applied. I appreciate your time.
Stay involved.
Meeting adjourned.